Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week might be a shorter review. But this show is one in a line of kind of that hard-boiled, no-nonsense, very seedy, darker crime action stuff that always fits perfectly. This one is called No Guns Life. And the reason I watched this a while back was because I've always been a fan of stuff like Black Lagoon or Gangsta, or I would say to a lesser extent Yorgomond, even though I would say I wasn't as fond of that one and the pacing that was involved, but this one fits in that mode of it's got its own seedy setting. It's a lot of people doing a lot of evil things, a lot of less than reputable things, stuff like that. And there's always a place for shows like that with people who are kind of anti-hero-ish, angsty people, crime people, just guns and violence and stuff like that. And while I won't say this was like the best interpretation of it, it had its own good qualities to it, and I really enjoyed it for the 24 episodes that it had, because it did a couple of seasons, like kind of like 2009 2020ish, and then a little bit later it did some more later, and it has some defining characteristics on its own, though I will admit, nothing. It's not gonna wow anybody in terms of like setting or exposure or characters or anything of that nature. When you boil it down, the best way I would describe it is serviceable and solid. And it really just comes down to if you enjoy what you're seeing and kind of the acting and the characters for what they're given in the world. Because the world does have a few things going for it. Specifically, in this society, the idea is there was a war, and people who went off to war, in some cases, were modified to be called what are known as extensions, or extended. What this boils down to is the typical giving people superpowers and super augmentations and things like that. They were turned into cyborgs. So rather than superpowers, they were turned into cyborgs, essentially. But the way they went about it is a little more hard sci-fi in this sense. They went for computerized augmentations and mechanical augmentations and things like that, changing their bodies. So not full-on prosthetics like a Ghost in the Shell. It's more of like, I've been given a mechanical arm, or I've been given a mechanical eye to get improved eyesight, or change my legs or change my bodies. Something like amputations and given prosthesis in that sense. You change your body to either overcome a physical limitation, or you change it because you were sent off to war and you needed that extra power boost or something of that nature. So you have people who are dealing with physical ailments, mental stuff like that, or in some cases just disfigurement in general, and anyone with pieces of that technology are called extended. And in some cases they're known as overextended because they were sent off to war and given way too much power, and they deal with like super side effects and stuff. One of them being Juzo Inouye, the main character. He's voiced by Chris Ryan. His whole thing is he is a gun slave unit, and there's a lot of weird mechanics involved with doing that. There are a very limited supply of those. They were like top secret-ish subjects, and they were not given too many of them because being guns for heads, pretty much, they were given way too much power. It's kind of the power leveling thing, but by and large, like, you're given augmentations, and you're given crazy super augmentations, and then gunslave units are kind of the hyper insane end of that, where let them run amok, they blow shit up. And Juzo is amnesiac, which does not help either. So not only does he have limited memories of what he can do, he has PTSD of stuff that he did at the war. He's kind of ostracized from society in general because of the way he looks, because he's a giant revolver for a head, you know. And the way he kind of deals with it is he smokes a lot. And the way that extended deal with these issues is through that. No, his is a specific case. There are, I would say, medical cigarettes, kind of like medical marijuana in a way, because, again, having a gun for a head and other parts of his body pretty much being prosthetic, he's in pain all the time. You know, so his mentality as a person at large is, well, I'm noticed by everybody. Nobody's gonna not notice me. So I'm basically trying to be self-sufficient. Being a what's called gun slave unit, the slave part means that his super special crazy attack power can only be accessed by certain people. So he keeps that in check. And he kind of tries to keep a low enough profile that, you know, he's dealing with a crazy, downtrodden city of weird people. So, amidst a war-torn landscape, a crime mafia-filled, just seedy underbelly kind of place, he finds his work as a resolver. So he fights extended and deals with weird stuff, kind of like private investigator shit. Think of Roger from Big O, just done a little dirtier, you know, or the guys from Gangsta who do weird side missions for money, you know, mercenary shit. So that's his thing. He lives his life. His mechanic, Mary Steinberg, is kind of the secondary third main character, but she's around with him to, you know, take care of any issues he has and whatnot. So they're just minding their own business a couple of times on a couple of missions here and there. But as he's going home, Juzo ends up finding this guy, Tetsuro, voiced by Caleb Yen. His whole thing is, stop me if you've heard this before, super secret laboratory mission, and he's been a test subject, and he's on the run from an organization, and that's kind of the main issue. Is it's traipsing on that stuff. So what they were infusing him with, and, you know, trusting him with, or experimenting on him with, was the idea of harmony. So harmony is this special power that can allow Tetsuro to control and also inhabit different people who have extensions. One of them being Juzo to an extent. Juzo doesn't exactly like that approach, doesn't like being controlled, and, you know, has just an issue dealing with Tetsuro. But knowing that Tetsuro is kind of the linchpin of crazy, weird, super secret religious cult, the acting military officers, government, you know, government research, you can kind of see where this shit's going. He gets caught up in Tetsuro's bullshit, and Juzo has to protect him and keep him safe, all while doing his own extension resolver bullshit to make money. So the show kind of balances its time between doing odds and ends with Juzo's mercenary work while still having to fight off different kinds of people with different kinds of extensions and all that stuff. And I would say it does it well enough. Again, the setup is nothing you haven't seen before. Oh my god, super secret research, whatever shall we do? Person on the run, whatever shall we do? You know, shit like that. When you get shows like this, a lot of the times it kind of comes down to what are the distinct pieces and how are they shuffling them around to make them interesting. Uh, I think the introduction of extension technology and cybernetics in this way of making them look like mechanical pieces of hardware and like guns and weapons and prosthetics, that gives it a different aesthetic vibe to that sort of thing. The city itself, the mafia stuff, the government agency stuff, all this stuff you've seen before, right? And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. I'm saying it's not. It's again, it's one of those kinds of situations. So it comes down to: do you like Juzo as this no-nonsense private eye detective ass-kicking guy? Do you like the other few characters that they show, whether they be other extendeds, people chasing after them, the different government agencies, like the way they process things? This, it's not gonna beat out a Black Lagoon. It's not gonna beat out a Gangsta. I think those two are kind of the gold standard for this kind of thing. But you don't always have shows like this, or you have them like, say, Dimension W, which do it, but do it in a more sci-fi kind of futuristic way. This is kind of like hard-boiled crime with some futuristic aesthetic, so it's getting some futuristic and sci-fi stuff in there, but it's leaning a lot more towards the life of shit, beat shit up, curse a lot, kill people, do stuff, that seedier side of the aesthetic of the coin. And if you like, that sort of low stakes, high action, high octane kind of vibe from your anime, and you're kind of in the mode for stuff like that, this is good enough. And I think I'm selling it short because it's hard to describe it, because there are shows that are better. To be fair, there are shows that are worse. So it really comes down to, again, the sum of its parts and the way those parts work. Is this setup, simple as it is, what you were looking for at the time? And sometimes those are where a lot of these shows fit in. If you're looking for this sort of thing at a given moment, this is a sort of show that will work for you. If you're looking for the Black Lagoons, if you're looking for the Gangstas, if you're looking just something else in that same vein, even if it's not as good, you're still probably going to enjoy it. If something about it doesn't work, then I can totally understand you dumping off it because you've seen this rodeo before. Something like that. It's not going to win any awards. So, would I recommend a No Guns Life? Yes and no. I mean, it's one of those, you have to be in a certain mindset for this type of show in its configuration to make it work. I don't think it's going to make people just go batshit insane. But I also don't think it's like junk food either. It has some moments to it. It has some characters that I like to it, and I do think the way they deal with these prosthetics and these extended, and the way they go about their action stuff and their crime drama stuff is fine. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you're just looking for good entertainment, and that's what I would say. This is good. And good enough can sometimes be enough. So it's hard to describe it. And again, it's hard to make this a super long one, but I did enjoy it for what it was, and I have rewatched it, which is also a sign of a good show. I mean, it's on Crunchyroll, so whether it's on Pluto TV or Crunchyroll, the app itself, there's no harm in watching it, and I think people will enjoy it for sure. And the fact that I've gone back and watched it and enjoyed it and thought about it here and there is a good sign of something that stands up. So that'll do for today. Like I said, this was going to be a nice short one. I'm trying to, have a nice, easy morning for a change, and doing a shorter review was kind of what I wanted. Because I know that in the next couple of reviews, I'm gonna be talking about a lot more intensive stuff. So, speaking of which, Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair. I have a lot to talk about, so a shorter review, a couple weeks later or a couple weeks before that's not a bad deal because I'm gonna have a lot to say. Getting back to anime, this one's a kind of a goofy one. Hokkaido gals are super adorable. Again, really goofy, but also fun. Speaking of stuff that's not goofy, it's like we're bouncing from short to long to short to long. Xenosaga 3, also Sprach Zarathustra, which I have a lot to talk about, good and bad. But that will finish up the Xenosaga trilogy, which I know I've talked about the first 2 games, so talking about the third one makes perfect sense. And then anime I can rewatch time and time again, and things that I've watched once, and even if I've completed, I never want to watch again. Either because I'm too old for this shit, I've regretted watching it, or I've changed my mind on it and I don't like it anymore. Still haven't made that list yet. I mean, it's a couple of months from now, so I'm not going to worry about it. But my giant list of anime is growing, so I'm going to have stuff I'm probably going to add to the list, and I'm probably going to add to the not watch list. But that'll do for today. Nice, quick, easy one for today, and I will see you next time.